Commanders were hitting the back of that jersey. But we're going to start with Steve-O Klotz, clobbering people up in that A-gap. Greeny, this is Harbaugh taking it back in the early days when it is inside drill. Fullback, you go lead right on that Mike linebacker. Put your hat on his hat and knock somebody down. Look at him get behind the pad, drive his leg, boom. That defender hit the bait, sat him down. One pancake right there, my man Swagoo. One cake. Number 2, Willie Lampkin from the Rams. I want you to watch it. Secures the A-gap, runs up. Does that not look like Moses parting the Red Sea? Because that's what it looks like to me. Because my man gets up under the pad, drives his feet. He got men reaching with little arms that can't catch nobody, and then dumps them on the back of his head. There is nothing prettier than this right here. That running back needs to buy him some goods right now. Sat him down, number 2 for 2 pancakes. And to finish this out, this is the thing, Mike Vrabel bringing some nastiness back to New England. Will Campbell, little skip pull, get outside. I want a little man to try to come fit up with my tackle. Not a good plan if you're on the other side of football. Nice athletic move. Look at him, big man in space, gets his fit and finish, and then just I wanted him to drive him into the sideline so all his boys could see it. Unfortunately, he can't do that, but he takes it to the edge, dumps him down. What a thing of beauty. 3 pancakes, sat him down. My man handled his business.
Jeff Saturday, we look forward all season long to handing out the pancakes. Look at Marcus's face, exactly what we want it to be. We'll have plenty of time to get to all of those. But football season is back if the smell of pancakes are fresh in the studio. All right, our next feature is called Talk to Me. Mike Tomlin sat down with his former player, our beloved Ryan Clark, and RC asked him what he says when people bring up his drought in playoff wins. Mike Tomlin, talk to me.
Say nothing. You know, we got resumes, we all do, and we got to stand on that. I live a life, man, where I don't seek comfort, I don't make excuses. You know, engaging in that discussion to me is excuses. I don't live that life, man. Like, I pour everything I got into what I do, man, and when the dust settles, it settles, and I keep it moving. And so, you know, I don't care a whole lot about what people have to say.
I do.
I don't. Like, respectfully, I don't. Some people, you know, some people talk, some people watch, some people do. I'm glad I'm a doer. I'm glad I live in that world.
It's an excellent interview on the pivot. They go a lot of different places. RC and Tomlin are very close from all their time together, but that part of it is interesting, the way he manages this. And you cover that team closely all the time, and we're all aware, or maybe people aren't all aware, that locally, nationally, Mike Tomlin is a revered figure. Everyone around the country thinks he is one of the 2 or 3 best coaches in football. The hardcore Steeler fans see all these playoff losses, and a lot of them are frustrated, and a lot of them point the finger of blame at the coach.
For years.
What is your sense of what he is saying there and what we should be expecting?
Well, that's vintage Tomlin. He didn't tell me anything I didn't already know. I'm glad he's a doer. The Steelers fans need his quarterback to be a doer this season, because that's really the only thing anybody cares about. How good can Aaron Rodgers be? How good can this offense be? Can they finally win a playoff game? Mike Tomlin is a good enough coach where he can get this team 4 to 5 wins just by virtue of being himself. But the standard it needs to be elevated. The standard is the standard, but for right now, the standard has been no losing seasons. That's not going to cut it. But as long as he wants to be in Pittsburgh, he'll be in Pittsburgh.
Swag, I haven't had a chance to talk to you this entire preseason. What is your sense of this team with Rodgers and sort of the trade for DK Metcalf, a very un-Steeler-like offseason? They seem to be going all in for this year. What is your expectation of how well it will work?
It's all predicated on Aaron Rodgers, G. If Aaron Rodgers is 75 to 80% of himself, I'm talking about the good Aaron Rodgers, this team can have some success, and you'll have to worry about the Steelers if they get into the playoffs. And this is a long way I've come. G, you remember months ago, maybe a year ago, I floated this out there about what if Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin ended up working together. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, hell no, it shouldn't happen, because I thought it'd put them right back in this QB conundrum that they've been in for a while. They've tried everything. They've drafted, they've traded for, they've tried to bring guys throughout the system and build them up. They've been through offensive coordinators. They've tried to figure out new ways to play offense. But ultimately, I think if Aaron Rodgers can be competent and 75% of or 80% of what Aaron Rodgers is, because we've seen lesser quarterback play they made the playoffs. This is about him managing an offense, hitting explosives every once in a while, and allowing that defense to be the catalyst for them throughout the duration of the game, while they're supplementing that by making 21 points, 24 points potentially, and this team could be a problem. But they also got to get Cam Hayward back on the field. That's a whole other issue. That's going on.
He's got a contract situation he wants talked about as well. But just for the moment on that, Jeff, Rodgers, Tomlin, Steelers, what do you expect?
I expect them to win playoff games. Because let's be honest, this conversation is on the regular season. We like it, and Swagoo said it, Kmart said it. We're gonna make the playoffs somehow, right? We're gonna grind it. It doesn't matter anymore. Like we talk about Lamar Jackson, he has to prove it in certain ways. We talk about all the different players have to prove it. Well, Tomlin's got to prove it in the playoffs. You got to win games in the playoffs, like Dewar, all that kind of stuff. I appreciate the soliloquy he goes on, and I get as excited as anybody. But at the end of the day, if you're a Steelers fan, it's about winning playoff games. And they brought Aaron Rodgers in to win playoff games, not to make the playoffs, not to squeak in the playoffs, not to get by. You got to go win playoff games. That means they got to go take care of business. To me, this is a make it or break it. You've done, to Swagoo's point, you've done everything you can do. You brought in quarterbacks, you try to trade for them, you've done all this stuff. Well, now it's time. If we're going to go be a doer, we got to be a playoff winner. To me, we can get through the regular season, we get to playoffs, that's when the rubber really meets the road.
All right, I'm up against the end of an hour. We'll have more to say on the Steelers as we go, but we'll get back to Big D. And the D stands for drama. And in fact, a lot of it is selfish.
If you're looking for help with your draft, now is the time to listen up. ESPN Fantasy's projected top 5 in this year's PPR rankings. Number 1, who else? It's Jamar Chase. Because at Chase, the bank is always open, who averaged more than 100 yards receiving per game last season, scored the second most points in fantasy, only behind Action Jackson. That's Lamar. Top fantasy running back, not Saquon Barkley. It's Bijan Robinson of the Falcons. Robinson, 10 rushing scores from Week 10 onward, including multiple scores in each of his last 3 games. Vikings receiver Jay Jetta, Justin Jefferson, ranking 3rd. Jefferson enters his sixth season with more than 7,000 career receiving yards, the most in a player's first 5 years in NFL history. Saquon Barkley ranks 4th in our fantasy PPR list. Saquon had over 2,000 yards rushing last season while leading the Eagles to that Super Bowl win over the Chiefs. Rounding out the top 5, Jahmyr Gibbs combined 20 touchdowns rushing and receiving last year, finished with more fantasy points than any running back last season. Let's break it down even further to help us get ready for our draft, one of the greatest living Americans.
He said it, not me.
It's Field Yates. Write it in stone. If you have the number 1 pick, what goes into the decision of who to draft, Field?
Yeah, copious amounts of editing and research and thinking about what you're going to do number 1 overall. Of course, no, you're taking Jamar Chase. Okay. You're going to do. Bijan Robinson also under consideration. But Chase last season, of course, Gary, won the Triple Crown for receiving. He had over 80 points more than the second highest scoring wide receiver. Like, he could have had a couple of weeks where he just decided to leave after the first play and still have been the number 1 scoring fantasy wide receiver. The Bengals defensively this year profiled to be very bad. That's very good for a team. Once again, we'll be throwing the football a lot. And with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, a defense can't really make that decision of, let's just take away this guy and let somebody else beat us, because they have 2 premier wide receivers. Chase should feast again this season.
So it's interesting, Jamar Chase, maybe a consensus number 1, but was behind Lamar Jackson in fantasy point production. So that being said, at what point in your draft should you consider taking a quarterback?
Yeah, it's like value-based drafting, because you only play 1 quarterback, so you can wait a little bit longer because you need at least 2 running backs. Supply and demand comes into play. I think the quarterbacks, and there's an elite tier of 5 of them, should start going off the board in the 3rd to 4th round. This tier is, in my estimation, led by Lamar Jackson, the number 1 quarterback who had 14 games last year with 20 or more fantasy points. Then you've got the likes of Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen. The common thread between these 4 quarterbacks is any of them can throw for 4,000 yards and also rush for 750 yards and half a dozen, or maybe in the case of Jalen Hurts, a dozen touchdowns in a given season. Joe Burrow, sort of that last member of that tier, he gets the job done in a different way. He does not run as much as those guys, but as we know, absolute surgeon as a thrower.
Field, while we're talking about supply and demand, I want to get your take on some tariffs. No, I'm just kidding.
Wait, I thought that was for the next block.
Which rookies should fantasy players consider drafting early?
Yeah, so there's some years we have this obvious, like, screams in your face rookie, like, you got to take this guy. And that's one of those years, right? This is one of those years because Ashton Genty, the 6th overall pick in the draft from Boise State, he goes to the Raiders. We know Pete Carroll loves to run the football, and this team had probably the thinnest backfield going into the NFL draft of any team in the NFL. You know the rushing stats from last year. They were video game numbers. They were almost Barry Sanders at Oklahoma State level good. The part that I think is perhaps underrated about Ashton Genty is that 2 seasons ago, Gary, he actually led the FBS in running back receiving yards, 567. He's a dual threat back.
Who's under the radar?
Well, I'm not sure anymore because of what happened on Friday night, but Travion Henderson for the New England Patriots, turns out that guy is fast. I think it's a matter of time before he becomes the Patriots' best running back and actually leads the team in opportunities out of the backfield. He is the lightning, as you mentioned, to Ramondre Stevenson's thunder. He's a weapon in the passing game. For those that watch college football at Ohio State, you remember that huge screen pass he took for 75 yards in the national championship game. This reminds me of Bucky Irving last year. It's a matter of time before the rookie overtakes the veteran, as was the case in Tampa.
That's free game from Field Yates, one of the greatest living Americans. Field, very much appreciated.